So as I mentioned before, this is actually going to be an encore presentation of a lunch and learn training that we did that is on passports. And again, I'm going to give my disclaimer at the beginning. This is by no means an all exhaustive training on everything there is to know about passports. So just a couple background things before we go into the training. What I want you to be aware of is, one, there's a handout that is going to include all of the little detail pieces, all of the links that you're going to see on the screen and that we're going to go and look at online. And I have posted that on the Raw Choices Collaboration Facebook page. So you'll be able to, take that down, because sometimes for some people trying to take a lot of detailed notes, they don't get to listen. So I want you to be able to hear and gain information, but the handout is posted. It's there already. So you'll be able to go to that Raw Choices Collaboration Facebook page and download the handout and have it with all of the links and information on it. But as I mentioned, this is not a 100% exhaustive. I call it Passports 101 because I want to give us some basic information that every travel agent should know. Because quite often when your clients are talking to you about travel or you're planning a trip for your client, there's some basic background things that you need to know if they're traveling internationally and about their particular passports, or whether they have one or not, or do they need one or not. And these questions pop up, especially on our Q&A page, multiple times a week. And so some of this is just background information that I'm going to show you some places to go so you can know how to get the answers. I am a big proponent of making sure that everyone that's a travel agent is a subject matter expert, that you have the posture that separates you from just someone else. Because if they have to go look it up themselves, they could book their trip themselves. They're coming to us because they want knowledge and information. So we're going to talk about Passports 101. So this is, again, just basic information that you need to know about passports. So in general, I've got a little picture here. It's the blue passport book. That's a United States of America passport. I put the other picture down there because it's good to know that if people are citizens of other countries, their passports may be other colors. Also, if they, for instance, have a government position where they have certain clearances, they may also have a passport booklet that's a different color. But for just the general traveling public, they're going to have this blue passport book, or that's the goal, is for them to have it. But there's also what's called a passport card, and it looks like a little credit card or ID. The passport card is another type of passport, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the two and some of the differences. But in general, passports are valid for 10 years. Once a person applies for it and receives it, it's going to be valid for a certain length of time. If it's a minor, they're valid for 5 years. So again, these are just some general bits of information, and we're going to go a little bit deeper about certain things, but I want you to start off with just those basic working points. They may have a passport booklet, they may have a passport card, and we're going to talk about the difference because I've had situations where I know travel agents didn't know and they may have not given the best advice, or their clients didn't know. And so when you're talking to your client and you ask them, do you have a passport? You want to be specific in asking, do you have a passport booklet or do you have a passport card? Because I had a particular client, well, one of my partners had a client, and they were not the most coachable or teachable client. And so they were trying to be cheap, and they ran out and they purchased the passport card for their travel when they in fact needed the booklet because they wanted to save a little money, and it created a little challenge for them when they got to the airport. So we're going to talk about that. So your passport booklet is going to be used for international travel. It can be used for flights, cruises, if you're driving across the border and things of that nature. So that passport booklet is going to be an official government issued document. It's going to show that you are a citizen of the particular country that you're from, and in this case, we're referring to the United States. Now, some types of international travel are going to require that you have a certain number of blank pages in the back of the booklet. So it's also going to be important when you're talking to your client and planning trips for your client that you're asking these kinds of questions. Now, a little bit later in this training, we're going to actually go to a place where you will know what those answers are, how many pages do they need, and things like that. But I just want you to be aware of that up front, that when you're training and learning, it's not just do you have a passport. You want to make sure that you're paying attention to asking them what the expiration date is and how many blank pages they have. Because if they get to the airport and they're trying to travel and they don't have enough pages to be stamped when it's time for them to go through customs, again, they can run into challenges that you don't want your client to have. So we also note that you need to know the expiration date, because some international travel requires that the passport be valid for up to 6 months after the travel date. So again, if your client says, oh, well, you know, my passport expires this year, you're going to want to tell them to go ahead and renew it before they travel, just to be on the safe side, because if they're not traveling until, say, July or August, they may run into a challenge with trying to travel because their passport, even though it's still valid, certain countries, when you're traveling international, require that passport to be valid for up to 6 months after the travel date. So again, these are just some pointers that are going to help you be a much more knowledgeable travel agent when you're dealing with your clients about international travel. So now, secondly, that passport card. It's a little less expensive. Often people think, okay, I'll just get that so that I don't have to pay the price for the passport booklet. The passport card can be used for entering the United States at a land border crossing, at a seaport of entry. So we're talking about coming in from Canada, Mexico, Caribbean, Bermuda, things like that. So the major difference between that passport card and the passport booklet is that you're going to want to note that you cannot fly with the passport card internationally. So we're going to talk about cruises because I know that's a question that's burning on someone's mind. But again, if you're doing a cruise to the Caribbean, you're sailing out of Miami and returning back to Miami, and you happen to have the passport card, that's great. It does work that way. But if something were to happen mid-cruise and you need to fly back to the US and the only thing you had was the passport card, again, you run into some challenges because that is not something that you can use for flying in and out of the country. So major difference there. So you want to pay attention to making sure that if your client is ordering their passport for the first time, that you're making sure that they either get the booklet, or if they want the card, they get the booklet and the card, but that they don't just do the card only if they're going to be planning to do international flying, because the passport card by itself would not be enough to satisfy those travel requirements. So let's move on. Basic information about getting a passport. You're going to need a passport photo. So you can go to a lot of the drugstores in your local area, probably have a little sign in the photo area that they do passport photos. Some people take their own, but you want to make sure if you're doing that, that you read the requirements, because no glasses in your passport photo. It has to be a 2x2 photo. When it's time to apply, you're going to need to schedule an interview. There are certain locations, a lot of the US post offices do them, but you want to just verify before you go which ones take walk-ins and whether or not you have to have a formally scheduled interview. Now, these are just fee ranges. So depending upon what a person is ordering or whether or not they're renewing, they're going to be spending anywhere from $30 to $165. Prices will be going up a little bit later. So again, you want to pay attention to things like that. Then processing times. Routine standard, 4 to 6 weeks, and expedited can be 2 to 3 weeks. Expedited at an agency can be 8 business days. There are a few select locations that you may be able to do a same day. But again, you want to check with the particular place before you show up, making sure that you're clear on what the requirements are. So things like this These general parameters are important for you when you're working with your client. If they've got time to do the regular routine order, they're not traveling for another 4 or 5 months, go ahead and do the routine order. But if they're going to be traveling in the next couple months, they may want to do the expedited request. So I'm going to take a moment here, because as we shift gears, I'm actually going to go over to the website. So I'm going to pause here, because next thing we're going to talk about, we're going to start talking about the State Department travel website, because this is going to become, or should become, your best friend as a travel agent booking international travel. Because on this State Department travel website that we're going to go to, you can get information on passports, things to do before you go, country-specific information, as well as the Smart Travelers Enrollment Program, or STEP program. So I'm going to switch screens now, and we're going to go online. So when we go to travel.state.gov, this wonderful Department of State Bureau of Consular Affairs website is here for our benefit, and it's going to give us a lot of helpful information that often, again, those questions that we see that pop up: do they need a visa? Do they have to have shots? Is there a travel warning? You're going to be able to find all of this information here at the travel.state.gov website. So the first thing, as I mentioned, when it comes to ordering passports, there is a link here for passport. And let me actually come back. I'm going to click over. It's going to give you all the information you need. It's even here in Spanish. You can find out where to apply. It's going to walk you through basic information to help you know what you need to bring. It's got things here about children, tracking your status, renewing, reporting lost and stolen. So again, one-stop shop here at travel.state.gov. You can get all the important passport information that you need. It'll tell you what your requirements are. You can click to know for fees, pretty much anything you need to know. So again, when you are making plans with your client, you can also direct them here to this website as well, so that they can be informed and make sure they have the right documents that they need and things of that nature. So next we're going to start talking about this website here. So we mentioned passports. This next tab here that says international travel, again, as I mentioned, as a travel agent, tools like this can be your best friend. Help you come off as the most knowledgeable person in the world to your client. Because if you click on that international travel tab, you'll see here there's a before you go, country information, while abroad, what to do in case of emergency. So as you're looking here, this before you go section will give your client great information of things they need to know. They type in the country that they're traveling to, and then it's going to pop up with a special list that is specific to where they are going. As you see here, they can put in the destination. There's information here about a checklist of things they may need to do. So let's say that your traveler wants to go to Nigeria. Someone asked me about Nigeria just recently. So when you put in Nigeria, here it's going to come up and tell you travel advisories, any alerts that are necessary, quick facts if any. Then these little boxes here that have a plus sign next to them, when you click on them, it's going to open up and give you other important information. If you needed information about the embassy, how to contact them, what their hours are, any descriptions needed, there's a fact sheet on Nigeria that you can open. Here, where it says entry, exit, and visa requirements. This is that place that I mentioned to you is important because it will tell you what's required for the place that your client is traveling. So here it says a valid passport, a visa, and proof of polio and yellow fever vaccinations. So if someone told you that was where they were traveling, you could go here and read right from the screen. It's going to tell you what types of things are needed in order to travel to that particular destination. There's information in each of these little things that are underlined and highlighted are links that will give you additional information about those kinds of things. There's information on safety and security, local laws, health, travel, fact sheets, all sorts of things. So again, this is a great tool for you as a travel agent when your client wants to travel, because you can come right here and at a glance, with a few clicks, be able to give them information specific and up to date for where they want to travel. When people are worried about travel advisories, as you can see here, there's a scale where it tells you 1 through 4 what the recommended travel advisories are for a particular location. So again, these are tools that are going to help you be more effective as a travel agent. So again, this is at the travel.state.gov website when you click under international travel. So here there's also things you need to know while you're abroad, what to do in case of emergency, things of that nature. I'm going to come back here because we also talked about under the before you go here, things that there is a program called the Smart Travelers Program, which is STEP is the abbreviation. So we're going to look at some information there because again, these are tools that you can provide to your client when they're traveling internationally. Here it will show them how they can enroll in the STEP program. It's a free service that allows U.S. citizens and nationals traveling and living abroad to enroll their trip with the nearest U.S. embassy or consulate. Here it'll show you benefits of enrolling in STEP and things of that nature. So again, pretty quick and easy. It's going to tell you what to do. You create an account and then you register. That way, if your client or their family need to be able to contact the consulate on their behalf or the embassy, again, their trip is already registered. So the Smart Traveler Program is again another way to help your client be better informed when they're traveling internationally to various places. It will also allow them to receive important information from the embassy about safety conditions in their destination, and it will help them just make informed decisions about their travel plans. Again, they're registering with their emergency contact numbers in case somebody needs to reach them while they're in another country. It also helps their family and friends be able to get in touch with someone in another country in case of emergency. So just some basic things that you can access again by going to the travel.state.gov website. If you need to get a visa, there's a link here about doing that. All of the things are right here at your fingertips. So now we're going to just flip back over to our presentation because again, I don't want to keep you long, but I always want to make sure you have information that's going to be valuable to you. And for those of you who joined the call a little bit later, the handout that has all of this information I'm sharing as well as the links is posted on the Raw Choices Collaboration Facebook page. So there is a link to that PDF and you are able to download that and have it for your own benefit. Some other things that aren't necessarily specific to passports, but they're kind of passport adjacent, we'll say it that way. We want to talk about the Real ID Act and some other services that can help your client travel well and be able to be better informed. So the Real ID Act is something that went into effect as of January 22nd of 2018. Now with the Real ID Act, there were some extensions and things that went into play, but the long and short of what it's saying is that there is a move to require those of you that are in the United States to update your driver's license so that you are able to fly domestically, and I want you to hear that part, So depending upon what state you're in, some states have what's referred to as an enhanced driver's license. A few states do. I know we have several people from Michigan. Michigan is one of those few states that do. Many other states don't. And so when it's time for you to renew your driver's license, or if your renewal is after the upcoming effective date that's coming up in October of 2020, when everyone across the country needs to have it, you just want to make sure that you're informing your clients that they haven't already done so, that they make sure that when they're renewing their license, that they get a real ID compliant license. So this little picture here of our sample person, there's a star up in the upper right corner. That is the visual note that shows that that is a Real ID Act compliant license. So there is a link on the handout to the Real ID Act website where you can read all the details, figure out what state you're in and where you need to go. But I just want to touch on that because that is a change that's coming, and it's not just for those people who are traveling internationally. It affects domestic travel. So you want to make sure that as a proper travel agent informing your clients that you at least touch on it with them and make sure that you give them that reminder and encouragement to make sure that they comply. Other services that are going to be helpful to you to know about and also to perhaps take advantage of yourself. Talk about the TSA PreCheck. You've been to the airport. I'm sure you noticed that there are two different lanes. There's one lane that is wrapped around with tons and tons of people. And then to the far end, there's another lane that doesn't have very many people in it and moves quite quickly. In that main lane, everybody's taking off all their clothes, trying to get through PreCheck, trying to get through the checkpoint with TSA. In the other lane, the people look happy because they're breezing through. So I bring that up because as travel agents especially, we talk about being a product of the product when it comes to going on cruises and going to resorts and visiting beautiful and exotic places. But having TSA PreCheck or global entry and some of these things that we're talking about here is also a part of being a product of the product. When you apply for TSA PreCheck, it's $85 and it's valid for 5 years. And it's going to expedite your travel through the screening points at TSA at the overwhelming majority of the airports you're going to be traveling through in the United States. There are a few little small ones that it may not make as big of a difference, but especially if you are going through your major airports that are congested, I would not even recommend that you attempt that without TSA PreCheck, because otherwise you're going to have to be there a lot further in advance because those lines can be horrendous. But with that, some of the benefits of going through TSA PreCheck is that you're not going to have to take everything off like you do on the other line. The shorter the line, the quicker you can get to your gate. I sing the TSA PreCheck theme song, love song, because I had TSA PreCheck before I became a travel agent because I traveled a lot for work. But I always tell travel agents to let your clients know about it as well. If you have clients who travel frequently, you want to make sure that, again, you're being that subject matter expert about travel, that you're recommending these types of things to them so that they can have an enjoyable experience. I shared this information about TSA PreCheck with my brother. He had a particular job where he was literally traveling multiple times a week for his job. After he got TSA PreCheck, oh, he thought he was the boss of the airport. He'd pull up and get dropped off and run straight to the gate. He knew where it was, and it changed his whole travel life. So again, I point those things out to you because your clients will love you when you are knowledgeable and can share this kind of information with them. And again, so on that TSA.gov/PreCheck website, it's going to give you all of the information about the requirements for TSA PreCheck. It's going to share information with you because I see some of you are dropping questions. We're giving you a general overview, but I want you to go to those sites. We're going to go look at a few of them in just a moment. Next, global entry. Not as many people are as aware of global entry as they are of TSA PreCheck. Global entry is going to be important for those of you who are doing a lot of international travel because it is going to assist you with going through customs, and it includes TSA PreCheck along with it. So it's a $100 application fee. It's also valid for 5 years. It's going to give you expedited entry benefits into other countries. It's going to include your TSA PreCheck with it. So with that $100, you're going to get global entry and TSA PreCheck approval together. And your ID card that you get for global entry is Real ID compliant. So if someone has global entry, they can use that because it is also Real ID Act compliant. Then I wanted to talk to you about the mobile passport. This is an app that a lot of people don't know about, but with the mobile passport app, you can download it to your phone. It's a free app. You have to have a passport though. But once you have the mobile passport app, you can preload your passport information into the app, and then you won't have to fill out all those customs forms and things like that at certain ports. So it is going to give you customs and border access through one cruise port in Fort Lauderdale and 24 other airports. So again, these are just tools that are going to help you be able to travel better. It's a free app. You download it, put your information in from your passport, and then you just scan. It gives you a little barcode. And again, similar to bypassing those long customs lines, when you go through the line that has the mobile passport sign, you scan your phone and you're going to head on out to wherever you need to go. So again, these are just tools that can help you be more efficient. So I'm going to take a moment and we're going to go and switch back over online for a second. So as I mentioned, again, knowing these things, knowing where to go, are things that are going to help make you a more valuable travel agent for your clients. So on the handout, as I mentioned, when you get that handout, all of these links are listed on the handout for you. But again, TSA PreCheck, they can come here. It gives information about renewals, about applications, how to apply. It gives answers to frequently asked questions. Airports, because you're going to have to schedule an interview, and depending upon where you live, it may be at your local airport. There are other agencies that do that. So again, you want to know how to get to the website and get all that information, schedule your appointment. Shows you here, it's going to include a background check. It's a really quick interview. You'll be fingerprinted, and then you're going to get what's called a KTN or known traveler number, and you'll be able to enter that into your profiles. So for instance, I have profiles with the major airlines that I fly with, and I have my KTN number already entered into my profile. So when I purchase airline tickets and put my number in, it gives me that little TSA PreCheck on my boarding pass. So again, these are things that are going to help you personally travel better, but it's also going to separate you and make you a more knowledgeable travel agent when it comes to you talking with your clients. Because if you've got clients who travel frequently, you want to have them take advantage of these types of programs so that they're able to have the benefit. So if you'll note here in the middle of the screen, it says with TSA PreCheck, you do not need to remove your shoes. You don't have to take your laptop out. You don't have to remove your little bottles of liquid, take off your belts and things. Again, it's going to be a wonderful experience. Trust me, take my word for it. Take the word of several people who have jumped in the chat box singing the praises of TSA PreCheck. Because again, with this, if you are, TSA PreCheck is available to anyone who actually goes through the application process and is approved. So it's not something that is just specific to travel industry people. It's open to anyone. As I mentioned, I had TSA PreCheck before I was ever a travel agent because I was traveling frequently for my job. So you want to make sure that you're paying attention to these kinds of things so that you help your clients be able to have a great experience. Think about it. I have a particular client, kind of grumpy old man type person. Once he got TSA pre-check and was able to stop taking all his clothes off and things, he loved traveling. His wife liked to travel all the time. He didn't want to travel with her because he didn't like going through TSA. Once they went through the pre-check lane, oh, it was a wrap. He was ready to see the world with her. So again, as you're paying attention to these kinds of things and offering them to your clients, it just increases your value when they ask that question, why should I use a travel agent? We have knowledge about things. And so things like this that you can share with your client that they may not be aware of gives you value in their eyes. If they're traveling internationally, then you want to pay attention and make sure you take advantage of things like global entry. So as I mentioned on the handout, all of the links are there for you as well. When you take that, each point we've talked about, there are links on there for those as well. So I wanted to point those things out. So we were here with our TSA pre-check. And so I'm going to do one quick switch over and we're going to go look at our global entry. Again, this is a trusted traveler program. The benefit for people who travel internationally, again, is that when you apply for global entry, TSA PreCheck is already included. So if you don't have TSA PreCheck and you don't have global entry, and you know you're going to be doing a lot of international travel, it may be to your benefit economically to apply for global entry because the TSA PreCheck will be included with it. So again, things like this just help you know a little bit more about your business. Travel is our business, and the more we can know about it, the better it is. So as I mentioned, just in recapping a few things, you want to know basic pieces of information about passports. When you go in and get your passport and have those things, you want to make sure if your client says, oh, I have my passport, that you're paying attention to things such as the number of blank pages they have, as well as the expiration or renewal date of their passport. You want to go to your before you go and then take a look at the destination that they're traveling to so that you know whatever information you need to know about their company, about that country, whether or not visas are required, whether or not vaccinations are required, any of those kinds of things. Again, you can search this information in just a couple clicks like you saw we did and provide direction to your client as well as being informed yourself. It's just good to know. When it comes to traveling on cruises, as I get ready to close, the one thing I want to share with people, because I realize that we're all family here. Sometimes we can be kind of combative with my experience versus what the rules are. So I'm sharing with you where to go to get information so that you don't have to go over someone else's experience. You can give your clients the specific information that the government has laid out for us. Because you want to be sure, yes, when you're traveling on a cruise like that example I mentioned when we opened up, you're sailing out of Miami, you're circling the Caribbean and coming back to Miami. A person cruising like that may be able to cruise with their birth certificate and driver's license. They may be able to travel with an enhanced driver's license, a passport card, or a passport booklet. However, if something happens mid-cruise and they have to get off the ship and fly back home for some reason, all of those types of IDs that they use to get on the ship are not created equal. Because if they have to fly back, they can't fly back with the cruise card. They can't fly back if all they had was their birth certificate. So the better statement, because I've heard people say, oh, you don't have to have a passport to cruise. You can cruise without a passport, but you want to make sure that you educate your client on what those stipulations are and let your client make that decision. You don't want to be the one that told your client they didn't have to get a passport. You want your client to have taken the responsibility of deciding they didn't want one. Because again, we never plan for an emergency to happen, but if something happened and they can't get back and it's because you told them they didn't have to have a passport, they're gonna blame you. And the emotion of whatever that emergency is, it's just not gonna be a great situation. So you wanna make sure that you're giving them the information and allowing them to make the best decision for themselves. Can they cruise on a closed loop cruise like that without a passport? Yes, based on the cruise line standards. But that is based on them leaving and returning on the same ship on the itinerary that they booked. If anything happened, and we know now, we hear very frequently about things happening and it's a sad thing and their GoFundMe accounts happening, because just like travel insurance, we tell people, people don't have to have quote unquote travel insurance, but if you don't and something happens, then you have a situation. So you want to make sure that you're paying attention to the information you disseminate to your clients. As a travel professional, don't go on the experience, well, when I traveled, I didn't have to show this, that, and the other. Maybe you didn't. But again, when there are certain requirements for travel, you want to have those things that the government requires, because you never know if your client is going to be that 1 in a million person that they pull out a line and want to look at everything line upon line. So again, websites like these that we've looked at, travel.state.gov, again, they're going to give you a wealth of information to share with your client and to help you be able to give them the information to make the right decisions about their travel. So with that being said, that brings me to the close of our quick Passport 101 training. So what I'm going to do at this point is I'm going to stop our recording, but I'm also going to open up for some general questions. As I mentioned, this is a Passport 101. It is not trying to give you every possible passport scenario, every answer to every passport question, but I want to make sure that you are informed of where to go to get information, as well as that you give good information to your clients so that you are known as the travel expert in their eyes.